Ha!
Oh,
Welcome back,
stopped.
everybody, to episode 34 of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. I'm your host, Christian Brindle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Glen Shelton, and super excited, guys, to be back with you on another episode, jam-packed today. We got tons of awesome topics to kind of get into today. To kind of start off, right, the topic and the theme of the show today is going to be kind of diving in and dissecting this whole situation that transpired over the course of AEP last year and some things currently going forward, right? Like maybe we'll talk a little bit about this Florida Blue situation. I don't know if you've heard about that, Glenn.
That's exactly what I was going to mention too. That's kind of the latest.
Yeah, I mean, but to kind of start off the show, we wanted to kind of briefly kind of discuss something we haven't talked a ton about, and that's the man standing behind you, Glenn. Dr. Oz.
If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, I have a life-size cardboard cutout that is now in my office of Dr. Mehmet Oz. If you don't know who Mehmet Oz is, his rise in fame and notoriety really came from the Oprah Winfrey Show. He was essentially, I mean, that's where I know him from.
Okay.
Are you being sarcastic right now?
No. I'm being legitimately serious. I didn't know like where his roots were from. So that's interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's how he really got placed on the map, right? As Oprah was looking to have a guest on her show who was a doctor who could come in and I think speak to some of the, medical, it could be diets, it could be, medications, like, anything like that. I think that's really what she wanted. And it was a reoccurring guest role. Again, as a child in the 90s, if you were sick at home and if you had a mom watching Oprah, you probably would see Dr. Oz. I remember seeing Dr. Oz, and I enjoyed it. I remember being like, oh, Dr. Oz is on today. Like I thought he had, kind of an interesting spin. Now, again, his career, I believe he's a heart surgeon, so he is a legitimate doctor. But he got, once Oprah kind of propelled him into his own TV show. So after being on Oprah for a while, he ends up getting his own TV show.
I remember.
Yeah.
Dr. Oz show.
Yes, the Dr. Oz show. And then, after the Dr. Oz show went on for a long time, and I don't know, there was kind of a gap in time, I think, between that show ending and where he eventually ended up running for Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. So I don't know exactly what he was up to between that time period. But then he ran for state senator, lost, and
in
now
Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
I remember him running because I remember talking to my dad, and my dad was just outraged at the guy that he was running against.
Yeah, John Fetterman.
The guy that won, right?
Yeah, I think it's
the
just John
guy.
Fetterman.
The hoodie guy. Yeah.
He's a character. He was on Joe Rogan actually interviewed John Fetterman. I don't know if you listened to that podcast.
I've never listened to it. I'll have to go back and listen to it. I've never listened to that. See, and my mom. See, funny you mentioned that about Oprah. Growing up in a house with your mom watching Oprah. My mom never watched Oprah because Oprah was too liberal for my mom. You know what I mean? Like,
my mom's pretty conservative, but she did. My mom loved Oprah.
So it's like I've been sheltered in a bubble away from
you. Really have.
Mehmet Oz and Oprah Winfrey, and now I'm learning more about their trajectory.
Yes.
For anybody watching, right? I mean, this podcast will go on a bajillion platforms, right? Sirius XM Radio, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. I mean, on and on and on and on and on, right? If for any of you that are watching that aren't aware, right? I mean, this is a podcast about growing your insurance business and kind of keeping you up with the times, right, of what's going on. But, primarily the biggest focus in our agency currently is the Medicare space, right? So anything that's going on in the Medicare space that affects Medicare agents is a huge, huge portion of our business and what we do. And for those of you that don't know, our soon to be next president of the United States has appointed Dr. Oz as the new commissioner of CMS, the head over CMS, which, that's kind of what we want to dive into a little bit and kind of talk about. I mean, the reality, I think, is nobody, despite what everybody likes to think, right? Like everybody has an opinion today. Everybody's got an opinion about everything. And I've seen a bajillion opinions about, is Dr. Oz going to be a good commissioner, bad commissioner? Oh, I think that. I will start off by saying, I don't think it can get worse than the current commissioner we have now. Nobody has been more critical of this lady than I have. Not a person. I'm like running the campaign, like the anti Miss Brooks LaShore campaign, and I can't wait to see her go and get thrown out on her ass where she belongs. So from that perspective, I'd take anybody. I'd take a homeless person over who we have right now. Anybody. But that being said, Glenn, I mean, what is your opinion on the Ozster taking over and running CMS?
I think, I share that. I share that same belief that it can't possibly get worse than what we've experienced over this past administration, this past 4 years with the current CMS. I'm looking at, I've got Wikipedia pulled up. They're saying administrator. Is that the official?
Administrator,
you're the CMS administrator, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably the official.
I guess title. The technical title, you guys, is CMS administrator because you're just administrating the Center for Medicare Services. But anyways, I share that belief that I think you could bring in almost anyone, and I don't think it could get worse than what we've experienced with this previous administration. My understanding is that Dr. Oz is very much so a capitalist, right? I think he's going to be supporting the free market, deregulation, all of these things that should be beneficial for the Medicare business, especially as an agent, as a broker. What I'm anticipating we'll see is political change that will benefit the industry as a whole, and political change that will benefit you as an agent and as an agency owner. That's what I'm expecting to see. I have pretty low expectations, though. I'm not going into this with rose-colored glasses. I don't believe that my buddy back here, Dr. Oz, is going to, come in day one and just start like obliterating all of these different rules that have been put in place. But I think at a minimum, we won't see a bunch of increased regulation, a bunch of new rules that we weren't even expecting. I think at a minimum, that's something that we can bank on.
So I was listening to a podcast this morning at the gym. I was listening to the great Tony Robbins being interviewed by Patrick Bet-David. Came out a couple days ago. Really good.
I love Tony Robbins.
And one thing he was talking about that I think is relevant in this conversation is he's talking about how everything in life can be easily predictable through patterns, right? Like, the greatest, he talks about like the greatest investors in the world, for example, they understand the patterns of trends of cycles that the economy goes through in the market and everything like that, right? So business, personal life, patterns, right? if you look at what happened in the first Trump administration, what ended up happening with that CMS commissioner was kind of exactly kind of what you said, right? There was not a whole lot of rules that were pulled back, but there were just a lack of new rules put out. And there were some rules that were pulled back. For example, right? Every time I say this, right, by the way, I get somebody that pushes back on me. They're like, I've been in the business 30 years. That didn't happen. I'm like, it fucking happened. Like, and then I have to like pull out the links and, and I get all defensive and everything. And, but that CMS commissioner pulled out the 48-hour scope of appointment rule, which is a fantastic thing, in my opinion, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. It helps no one, right? If a senior is going to get bamboozled, ripped off, put into the wrong plan, that does zip to stop it. It's the stupidest thing that anyone's ever thought up. And so that was an example of something, right, that got pulled back. And I thought it was kind of relatively interesting. So and there's other things as well. So there were some things that got pulled back, but it wasn't like it was like a total overhaul. And so I think that's probably a realistic and reasonable expectation based on what we've seen in the past. The only time I can remember in my career, right, this is year 11 for me, where we had a CMS commissioner that did an overhaul was the one we just had. That was an overhaul, right? More rule changes every year. They're trying to squeeze one in right before they get their ass kicked out the door with this proposal they put out about 30 days ago. I mean, that's the definition of an overhaul. But I think more realistically, we'll probably just see slowly but surely some of these unreasonable regulations kind of pull back and be more pro-business.
That's what I'm hoping too. I mean, again, I think there's been a lot of commentary already, in the Seven Figure Medicare Facebook group. I've seen a lot of commentary. I've seen a lot of commentary in other groups online. I've seen, articles that have been written already about Dr. Oz on what to expect and this and that. And, RFK is also kind of part of this picture, right? Because
his boss.
Yeah, his boss, right? He's
RFK.
In charge of the what's his official? There's so many government departments. It's hard to keep track of all of them.
He's head of the department that oversees
National
CMS,
Health.
basically.
National.
It's like HH. I can't remember.
Yeah, NHI or something. But so there's been a lot of talk about what to expect and how things could change, and I think when you get too speculative, you get too far down the road.
Department of Health.
Yeah. So I think it's best to kind of wait and see, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic, and I think that even if the minimum expectation here is that we just don't have increased regulation, even if we just maintain where we're at, I think that's a huge benefit for the industry and for agents and agencies. Obviously, I would love to see more deregulation. I'd love to see if we could kind of throw this thing in reverse and back up a little bit. Sure. But even where we're at, if we could just hold, that would be nice.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be interesting to see, and of course, we'll be talking about it on this show as developments happen throughout the year.
For sure.
We're 2 weeks away from inauguration, so
yes,
that inauguration day is also Dr. Oz's inauguration day, as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
So interesting to kind of see. Let's quickly kind of talk about this show's sponsor, you guys. So this episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you guys by Lead Heroes, you guys. Lead Heroes is your one-stop shop when it comes to lead services for Medicare supplements, turning 65 business, final expense business, high quality telemarketed business that innovates and keeps up with different trends to make sure that you're getting compliant leads, to make sure that you're getting high quality leads, double verified leads, right?
Yes.
opted in online and then verified over the phone. Super high quality leads. You also get a recording of the phone call where the caller actually verifies it, so you can kind of make sure that actually happened. You can store it for your records. Lead Heroes has been a huge part of a lot of agents' growth in their book of business over the years, making sure you have lead flow. If you don't have lead flow, you don't have a business in 2025. So make sure that you pick up some leads with Lead Heroes today while you can, and make sure that you're taking advantage of the new year. All right, let's kind of circle back and shift gears a little bit to the topic at hand, and that is non-commissionable plans. A lot to jump into with this, Glenn. Like, where do we even start? How do you eat an elephant?
Man, I just think this was the hysteria of AEP 2025. You know, we talked about it publicly before. We've had a lot of private conversations about this topic. We've had, you know, we were just talking about Lead Heroes a second ago. We had clients at Lead Heroes who reached out and were, you know, very scared about these non-commissionable plans in their area. And the reality is I think a lot of it was overblown or sensationalized. Obviously, this is an issue that we need to keep up with. We need to make sure that these insurance carriers understand that this is a big deal to us. I really like, again, similar to, you know, when we're talking about politics, a lot of people talk about voting with your dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't spend money with businesses or, you know, places where you don't support their ideology. The same thing, in my opinion, applies here in the industry. If a carrier rips away commissions on a plan, that doesn't mean put that plan still at the forefront of what you're offering Medicare beneficiaries, because that's not going to be benefiting you to service that client, right? Because it's not just about that initial commission. This is also about the ongoing relationship with that Medicare beneficiary as an agent, as a broker. So, you know, let's look at all the plans that are available. And it was really interesting, and Christian really helped go through this as an exercise with me with a Lead Heroes client, this AEP. They were very concerned about these non-commissionable plans in their area. You know, we looked at the areas that they're marketing in. We looked at the licenses that this agent had. We were working with this agent. We said, okay, it looks like you know, despite there's a couple pullbacks here on some of these major carriers, you still had, I want to say it was 26 or 29 commissionable plans.
Yeah, I remember it being in the ballpark of 30, and there might have been 4 that were non-commissionable. And the thing is like, some of the plans, like there were some Anthem plans, for example, that were non-commissionable in that area. There were other Anthem plans that were commissionable.
Right.
So it's not like, you know, it was one of those situations where it was just like, I don't know. It seemed like the hysteria of it all might have made it seem to this individual that all was lost. They couldn't write business, when in reality, it was just absolutely not the case, right? There was so much business that could be written. And, you know, you're talking a huge majority, almost 90% of the plans in the county were commissionable and able to be sold. Plenty of options.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it was fear driven, fear based, and a lot of, and I think you're still seeing that too. You're still seeing that now. Is there's this fear that because some of these plans got decommissioned, which I think there's legitimate reason why, right? I think this comes down to dollars and cents.
Should we quickly, just from in a Cliff Notes version, summarize what happened in case anybody isn't aware? So
yeah.
I'll quickly kind of go through that.
Recap it. Yeah, kind of give a recap.
So there's always been non-commissionable plans. Let me start off by saying that. You know, I saw people during AEP posting lists of Humana non-commissionable plans that were like from a year ago or 6 months ago. You know, they're like Humana list just dropped. Like, these plans have been non-commissionable all year, and you didn't even notice. You know what I mean? But so I think the hysteria was maybe overblown for sure. Now, here's the deal. Certain markets are impacted more than others, but let me anyway, let me circle back to that. I'm getting off track. There's always been non-commissionable plans.
Right.
That being said, the list of plans that are non-commissionable has grown every year. It's a greater list. And what transpired this year was it became pretty mainstream, honestly, in the PDP world is actually where we first saw it, that a lot of PDP plans leading up to AEP announced that they weren't going to be paying commission. There was kind of this back and forth on if they were, if they weren't. There was this whole thing with WellCare where WellCare filed as non-commissionable, and then they came out and said, oh, we changed our mind after the government stepped in and provided an optional subsidy for some of these carriers to try to help them with the blows financially they were going to be taking on because of the because of the Inflation Reduction Act. And, there's this back and forth with WellCare. It turned out that they weren't going to be. I was told by contacts I had at WellCare that they were. Like they were 99% sure they were. And then, turns out they were not. And only 3 carriers or so that are major national carriers ended up paying commission on PDPs, right? Majority of carriers stopped paying PDP. Mutual of Omaha pulled their PDP out of the market altogether and canceled all the members. SilverScript went non-commissionable for future business going forward. We all kind of know about that. Then comes AEP, and we have our normal lists of non-commissionable plans going into AEP, but then kind of in the middle of it, in October, we started seeing a trend over the course of a week and a half or so, that several of the major carriers put out new plans that were either going to be non-commissionable come 11/1 in the middle of AEP, or they were going to be suppressed where they wouldn't pay commission on those plans that if you did them through Sunfire or any type of electronic enrollment method, and you had to submit a paper app. Talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show.
Yeah.
And so, in my career, I had never seen a carrier do that mid AEP. Never seen that before. If any of you guys have that are watching the show, please let us know. I'd be fascinated to hear about that. But I've never seen it in my 11-year career that I'm aware of. So it's kind of unprecedented. It's kind of, a lot of people wonder, is it writing on the wall for more things to come? Is it a slow phasing agents out kind of move? And in my opinion, what I think, I had an executive on our YouTube channel with Cigna to basically give comments on this. Somebody that was involved in the situation, in the decisions with it. And I think they said it really well. They weren't making money on a lot of these plans. The whole dynamic changed in terms of their profitability because of the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't think we can ignore that. And so I think all these carriers have actuaries, right? They and the actuary's job is to crunch numbers and to determine, okay, what's our profit margins? What's our spread? What's our profitability on this plan? And I think they just totally didn't have their numbers in order. And it was just kind of one of those things where they thought they would get less enrollments on certain plans than they did. Plans were more popular than they were anticipating. And they projected they would be bleeding out next year. And they're trying to put a Band-Aid on the bleeding, if you will.
It kind of reminds me of early Medicare Advantage when there was a lot of plan changes, plans leaving counties, right? Plans pulling out where, it seemed like it was kind of unstable. Ultimately, and I thought, again, as a recap, I think that was great. And I always think everyone knows all these things, right? But then I'll see, like I saw a comment yesterday where someone was like, what's going on with these guys? It's like, where have you been? Where have you been for the past few? So it's good to do a little recap like that. But I think what we're looking at is going to be a consolidation, and that's essentially what I think has already started to happen, and we'll probably see more of. And that's not necessarily a bad thing overall. When you look at some of these markets and the number of plans that were available, it's ridiculous. We don't need 100+ Medicare Advantage plans in some of these counties. We talked yesterday a little bit about confusion in the healthcare system here in the US, and that's the type of unnecessary, in my opinion, confusion when you have that many options, that many choices, you're just going to start confusing people.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, to put it in perspective, when I started, right? So where the county our office is located in, Salt Lake County here in Utah. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't looked for a little while, but if I had to guess, we probably have 35 or 40 plans in our county, which might sound small, but when I started doing this 11 years ago now, we probably had 6 plans, 5 or 6, something like that. And so, and if our area has gone from 5 or 6 to 35 or 40, I mean, think about areas like Tampa Bay or Miami or Los Angeles or Las Vegas. Like the number of plans, I think that's a great point, that you made is obscene. It's crazy. Obscene is the word I'm going to pick because it's gross.
It really is gross.
It's just
like it's unfair to the beneficiaries to have to, if they want to try to educate themselves, it's unfair to the agent to think that they need to be educated and contracted and understand 100 different plans to offer 100 different plans to that beneficiary. You're complicating it for the actual healthcare system, right? We talked about the billing code system yesterday, right?
Yeah.
If you're having to work with 100 different plans, that's going to complicate things for the actual healthcare providers, right? So you're adding complexity by having that sort of volume of plans. So I'm all for consolidation at that level, in my opinion. I really think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it also kind of ties into the non-commissionable plans conversation too, from the standpoint of one thing to keep thinking about is, people will say something I said a second ago. You look at the list of non-commissionable plans and how much bigger it is than maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Certainly that's true, but there's also a huge increase in plans that are available than there were 3 or 4 years ago also.
Right.
So is the percentage of plans that are non-commissionable, is it greater than it was? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't figured out the percentages of it, but I would be willing to guess it's probably a lot closer than people might realize.
Right. Totally makes sense.
One thing that I think is interesting to kind of loop into this conversation that's more recent is this conversation about Florida Blue. I'm sure you've heard about this.
Blue.
Good old Florida Blue. Florida Blue. First off, before I get into it, what was your reaction to seeing that, right? Kind of post all of this drama, because this kind of came, after AEP. This was
recent.
This was post AEP. So, what was your reaction to kind of seeing that?
I mean, the Florida Blue being a regional carrier, right? Because this carrier is not available, or this plan, right? It's not available outside of Florida. So,
right.
And my understanding too, and I'm not licensed as an agent in Florida, nor have I ever sold a plan in Florida. So I can't speak to this plan as an agent specifically, but from working with other agents and my understanding of Florida, is that Florida Blue has always been kind of this strange plan to work with, that they've always kind of had their own ups and downs, I guess. So I honestly didn't have a major reaction when I saw that Florida Blue was pulling back. That was my opinion. I was like, oh, it's Florida Blue. That okay. That was my first. Maybe that's the wrong reaction. There's some Florida agent who's gonna hear this and be like, wow, what the hell, Glenn? Screw you. But I was on Florida. I was like, Florida Blue, don't care. Like, see you, Florida Blue.
So I have a little bit of of a different perspective.
You're an ex-Florida resident.
Yes.
This is coming from someone with boots on the ground in Florida experience. Christian's the guy to talk to on this. Christian, tell us what's going on with Florida Blue.
So I lived in Florida 2017, sold in Florida. Home appointments, kitchen tables kind of deal. Still was doing that.
You were selling Florida Blue in Florida.
No, I actually wasn't, because at the time, Florida Blue was still captive. So
Okay. Oh, that's right. That was the other thing. That was the other
Yeah.
thing with Florida Blue. I forgot about that.
So for years and years, Florida
Like Pfizer.
Blue, yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
for years and years, Florida Blue was a captive only contract. You could not really get it. And there's two different conversations about this, right? There's their ACA business and their Medicare Advantage business. Their Medicare Advantage business, in my opinion, right? And not only did I live in Florida, sell in Florida, we have a lot of clients in Florida. We have more clients in Florida than probably any other state that's not Utah. And you know, we're an FMO in Florida. We have a bunch of agents in Florida, and we have a contract now with Florida Blue with agents in Florida. This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by Everything Senior Insurance. Guys, if you're looking for an FMO in 2025 to be a partner with you and really support the overall growth of your business, Everything Senior Insurance is the one-stop shop to allow you to get plugged in with great resources, whether it's ACA contracts you're looking for, whether it's Medicare contracts you're looking for, whether it's final expense and life contracts that you're looking for. Everything Senior Insurance has got you covered. We provide a free CRM in seven-figure CRM to all of our agents that meet the proper requirements on their contracting and have enough contracts with us. We provide discounted leads with Lead Heroes, discounted virtual assistants with Hire Heroes, and we provide just year-round support to just be there and help you out in your business, as well as fantastic training. Glenn, what do people need to know about Everything Senior Insurance, the FMO?
At Everything Senior Insurance, we've really combined all of our resources to create an FMO that can be a true one-stop shop for a senior insurance agent. Most FMOs have only maybe one resource or even no resources beyond offering that contract. We want to provide value to you as an agent to help you grow your book of business. Or if you want to create an agency, we want to help you grow your agency. And there's so many resources that we have put together to really help you grow your business. So if you are looking for a true partnership, someone that will invest in your business, please reach out to Everything Senior Insurance. We would love to help you grow.
Thanks for listening to this message. And now back to the show. Their Medicare Advantage product, in my opinion, has never really been a huge player. It's been kind of like, it's one of those things. It's a blue, right? So even if you're in an area where there's a blue carrier and they're not super competitive, there's going to be a certain client or a certain individual that wants it because it's a blue. The brand of the blue, right? And there are a lot of agents that don't know that there are somewhere in the ballpark of 35 different Blue Cross Blue Shield companies in the country, right? They all have nothing to do with each other. This is anytime I ever bring somebody in and, you know, that's a new employee and we're training them, maybe somebody on the agent side of the business or the contracting side of the business, that is one of the hardest things for me to teach them. It's such a hard thing for them to wrap their brain around, that there's all these different Blue Cross companies. And agents don't know this. We get this all the time where agents are like, I'm contracted with Blue Cross in my state, and I want to pick up Blue Cross of Texas. It's like, well, that's a totally different Blue Cross. You know, they have nothing to do with each other. It's almost like the best way I can think about it is franchises.
It's franchise, 100%. Yeah.
Franchises of Blue Crosses, you know, like you might own a McDonald's in Oregon, but has nothing to do with, you know, John's McDonald's in New York.
Right. Or like a corporate owned McDonald's in Texas. They're all completely different, even though it's the same brand, same hamburger. It's all same shield that is blue. Same shield with the crossover that is blue. But Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? So
35 different entities.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. We have, but I don't want to get off a tangent on this, but I'd like to bitch about this for a second, if I may.
Please
we have probably 7 different Blue Cross Blue Shield contracts, if I had to guess. I don't know, actually. We have a lot of them, though. And what that entails is like 7 different certifications every year. We have, let's say, Humana in all of our states, or United Healthcare in all of our states. You know how many
Right.
certifications we have to do for that? One each.
Right.
But no, because Blue Cross has to be different, we have to do all this extra work. And it doesn't result in a lot of business. Let me tell you that. There's a couple Blue Crosses that are important.
Listen up, Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you want our business, stop this. Stop the insanity right now.
They've always kind of marched to the beat of their own drum, but some people love them for that too. So like they're a contract, anyway, let me circle back. If you're in a market that has a Blue Cross product, if it's not competitive, because there's certain markets where Blue Cross products are amazingly competitive, right? And they just dominate. But if you're in a market, let's say like Florida, where Florida Blue may have not been a super competitive Medicare Advantage product.
Let me ask you a question really fast here. My understanding for why Florida Blue was so big was from lack of options in certain areas. That was my understanding of why. It was almost like they were this inevitable because some places didn't have the options at the time, earlier on.
It probably was that way earlier on.
Okay.
I don't think it's as much the case now. I think there's
probably not now, for sure.
A billion Florida's such a weird market because, a lot of states, like Utah's a good example of this. Idaho, Colorado's like this, where you'll have service areas that make up a bunch of counties, right? Like you'll have service areas that like might be 4, 5, 6, 7 counties, and like all the plans are the same in this service area, right? Florida, there's a lot of plans where like you have this plan in this county, you throw a rock, it lands in the other county, and all the plans are different in this other county.
Right.
So like Florida's, it's such a unique market in that way. But it's even if you're in a market that has a Blue Cross plan that's not competitive, it's nice to have it because you always have that one-off person that wants it because it's Blue Cross, whether it's good or not. They have a very loyal customer base.
Good brand recognition,
cult following of sorts. But their ACA products, from my understanding, I mean, we don't play in that world as much, but we more and more every year, their ACA products are relatively competitive in that area, which is interesting. And their ACA products are still captive. So they've never really been independent as far as I know. But their Medicare Advantage product became available to independents not that long ago, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And so if I had to guess, my reaction to it is, and if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, mainly what they did is they decided that huge majority of their plans, I can't remember the exact percentage, they decided to just make non-commissionable in the next little while here, coming up here.
I thought I saw someone say 60%.
Yeah, the number in my head was like 60 to 70%, but I wasn't confident on it. But it's got it. It's somewhere in there.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
and so if I had to guess without knowing, my guess, and if anybody is in the know, you're welcome to chime in. We'd love to know if there's anything that we don't know on this situation. But my guess would be they weren't doing well with it, those products.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing well with the independent distribution model. And so that's probably my guess. And they're just like, they're probably feeling the squeeze like a lot of other carriers are with the Inflation Reduction Act. And, they see other carriers doing this. They're like, screw it. It's probably what
you think they're going back to the captive model? That's going to be their focus.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, they not only survived, but they had their own little, slice of market share with that for many years.
Right.
And I don't think they got a ton of business from the independent model. I don't think they did. I think they were probably expecting more than what they actually got. That would be my expectation, I think, of that.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Now here's the question that everybody's going to ask, right? And I've got asked this question 4,000 times. I'm sure you have as well. Is this a sign of things to come?
Right.
Do you feel like
is the sky falling?
Is this little by little us as agents being phased out? What do you think?
I don't think so. This is the bigger the bigger topic of conversation with the non-commissionable plans, right? The bigger topic of conversation than the actual plan itself. Because, it's not like United Healthcare or Aetna or Humana or any of the major carriers have come out and said, we're no longer paying anyone commission on any new plans. We're no longer paying renewal. Like, there's been no major communications like that. But what's happening is that they see, again, this is kind of what, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, is sensational headlines, being grabbed from the media, being grabbed on social media. What's happening, in my opinion, is you have these very fearful agents who see the article that, Cigna or whoever is not paying, or Florida Blue in this situation, right, is no longer paying commission on these plans, or not paying commission on these plans in these areas specifically. They grab this headline and they use it to validate their fear and say, these carriers are going to stop paying us. Here's proof. And while there's, in a very simplified way, you could try to look at it that way, I think if you really examine the situation, this is coming down to the dollars and cents on these specific plans from these specific carriers. They have plans that are not making them money. They cannot run at a loss for a long period of time because they have to be able to pay out these claims. So I think what we're seeing is a reduction in the number of plans. I think we're seeing that this is about the profit per plan. I think the Inflation Reduction Act it was really the source of almost all of this. And it's a shakeup. It's a shakeup. The pendulum swinging. Yes. I think we'll see it swing back. I think we'll probably see a consolidation in some of these plans. But the idea that we're going away as brokers, as agents, the idea that these carriers are
as a result of this.
Yeah. Now, mind you, I will say this in defense of the Chicken Little agents. I will say this: would the carriers love to stop? Yes, the carriers would love to stop paying us, right? The carriers would love to keep that money, right? They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars a year in commissions to FMOs and IMOs and agencies and agents and brokers. Yes, they would love to not pay us, but that's not even on the table right now for them to just stop. If they just stopped paying all of us overnight, their business disappears. They don't have anyone servicing their clients. They don't have anyone submitting applications for them. So do it like there's validity in this argument that carriers don't want to pay us, because of course they don't want to pay us. They would love to keep that money and be more profitable. But the flip side is that these regional plans, or these certain plans by certain carriers that are being pulled back, I don't think this is them slowly starting to not pay us. I don't think our commissions are going away. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Can I give an analogy?
Yes, please do.
If you, Glen Shelton, you hire somebody into our company.
Yes.
And let's say they're a super important person in your company, in our company. I'm still not used to saying
company.
That. In your company. Your company.
It's my company.
Let's say you hire somebody in, right? They're a super important person to our company.
Yes.
And we decide to pay them, let's say, a big salary.
Yeah.
Do we necessarily love paying them every 2 weeks?
No.
Probably not.
Are we?
But we need our people.
Yes, we do.
Right? It's kind of a similar dynamic, right? Like
100%.
If our people all just vanished overnight, we'd be in trouble.
We'd be in big trouble.
We'd be in big trouble. The business would be in big trouble.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're necessarily like, it's like an orgasmic feeling to see the pay go out. It's not like that necessarily. We get into that point.
All right, you guys. It's been a great episode 34 today.
But you still send it out. It's not like you're plotting or finding a way to not pay this person. Right. It probably is that type of dynamic.
This is to take this analogy further. This is firing the employee that isn't profiting the company. but you're not firing you don't have a plan to fire all the employees.
Right.
You're firing the employee that isn't benefiting the company. You're not seeing the ROI. You're just seeing a loss on that. Yeah, it's just that one employee. There isn't a grand plot here to fire everyone at the company. That's what's going on at the carrier level. They're looking at the numbers. Certain plans are crushing them on their profitability, whereas other plans are probably still profitable. So they're cutting away the plans that, and we're seeing it on a little bigger scale. But the flip side is, and I think, again, the key that was said on this, if there's like one thing to take away from this episode today that I thought was really good that you said is, yes, there's more non-commissionable plans than ever, but the bigger picture here is there's more plans than there's ever been. Yes. So if there's more plans than there's ever been, and there's a huge amount, I mean, we're not talking like 2-3x, it's probably 8 to 10x what used to be if we really rolled back, 5-10 years. So of course there's going to be more non-commissionable plans than there ever was, because there's more plans than there ever was. I really think it's that simple.
Yeah, I do as well. I think the only reason why it was so scary this past AEP is because of the nature of it happening in the middle of AEP, right? But I think this wasn't a normal AEP. This was not a normal AEP. And I think that's really what it chalks up to. I have shared a lot of thoughts and kind of messaging on this, on kind of my own thoughts about this as this has kind of rolled around in my head over the past couple of months in our private Facebook group, 7-Figure Medicare Agent. If you're watching on a platform and you're an agent and you want to be in there, by the way, check it out. It's free. Best group, fastest growing group on the internet.
The only group that you need to be a part of.
None of them. There are no others, by the way. Yeah. But essentially, my messaging and kind of the conclusion I've come to in the messaging is like, is it something we should pay attention to? Sure. Right? Is it something we should think the sky is falling? I don't think it's that. But at the same time, I think it's something we should pay attention to, because you never know what could transpire, right? If maybe it starts out as something where, it's saving profits and then it ends up going very well for the carrier, that's something you don't want, right? Because that can send a message like, oh, maybe we can do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But I don't think I think you hit it right in the head. I think it is, more than anything else, a pendulum swinging back and forth and a reaction to a very different phase in the market right now due to all the changes that have transpired.
Yeah, the chicken little, I can't talk today. The chicken little agents have always been here too. That's the other thing is there have been agents from the beginning of my career over 10 years ago now saying that the Medicare industry is going away. That
I've shared stories. Yeah. I've shared stories about my father in the 90s thinking it was going away because he heard something somewhere and he went to sell PNC for 3 months because he got scared.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is that conversation, that headline of, the carriers are getting rid of commissions, the Medicare industry is crumbling, blah, 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 blah. They're going to defund Medicare. I mean, whatever, pick your angle on why the Medicare industry is going to die. That topic of conversation has been going on for decades. And the longer we go, the less I buy into any of it. I think if there's anything that's scary, it's probably technology, it's AI. If you really want to be fearful of something, maybe there's some validity to that type of fear. But even that, I think, is a ways off. I don't see any technology that's available today that could replace an insurance agent. Could that happen in the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe, but right now it doesn't exist. So I don't know why you'd spend time today thinking, wow, my business is going away, because maybe 5 to 10, there's a bunch of things that could happen in 5 to 10 years, who knows?
And I think, to expand on that, I think for those of us in the Medicare space specifically, right? Our target demographic of individuals wants to work with a person. They want to talk to a person.
Right.
They're the ones they lose their shit about calling a carrier and they're getting someone overseas they can't understand, or or getting a automated system, right? They get the most triggered by all of those things.
Right.
And that works to our favor. Now, a younger demographic, if that technology presents itself, a younger demographic aging in, that could be problematic, but that is a generational thing, right? And that can change.
Right.
That takes generations to change that generation that's aging in.
Correct. Yeah, we've seen some of that too. Like, again, when I first got into the industry, the idea that a senior would be on social media, it really wasn't happening back in 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
That, a senior would respond to some of the type of digital marketing. So we've already seen that, some of that over the past 10 years, but it takes a lot of time for major changes like that to happen. So I wouldn't even spend any thought this year thinking my business is going to go away because of technology. My business is going to go away because the one payer health system is going to get rolled out soon. My business is going to go away because the insurance carriers want to stop paying us. If you spend a bunch of time thinking that that's true, probably just time to find a different job. Probably time to go work somewhere else. Before we get any further, I do want to mention this, you guys. We are doing a giveaway every single Friday here in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. If you're listening to this on a podcast or on a different platform, get into the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. And all you have to do to enter into the giveaway is comment on the live stream or a replay between Monday to Thursday. So during the week, we'll be doing this podcast, the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. If you comment on one of the live streams, that gets you entered one time into the raffle, the giveaway. We'll have a member of our team put together the list of names, and we will have a spin. You'll see it just like we've done before in the group. And then you will get a freebie from us. Could be free leads, could be a free educational system that you get access to that normally costs hundreds or potentially thousands of dollars. It could be a free book. It could be a free ticket to an event. All sorts of things we're going to be giving away free all year long. All you have to do is comment on the live stream. So if you're in the group, you're watching this live, or if you're watching the replay, drop a comment below. Give us some love, tag a friend, ask a question.
What about people on other platforms? What about people on other platforms that watch the show?
Stop watching it. Stop watching it. Stop watching the show. I don't know why you're watching us on a different platform. No, we need to get you got to get in the group. You can keep watching us on other platforms. You can listen to us on the podcast. That's fine. But we want your comments here in the group. We really do. We need it. We need those comments. We love those comments, but we still love you.
Absolutely. As we get close to the hour mark, this might be a good opportunity to kind of just circle back on some final thoughts on today's show. And I guess I'll start. So for me,
final thoughts.
My final thoughts on this topic, right? So first topic we talked about was Oz, right? When it comes to Oz, my final thoughts are I'm optimistic, but don't ever I've always been against the philosophy of expecting someone to just come in and save my bacon, right?
Right.
I have to save me.
Right.
So if your business is not going the way you want it to go and you're blaming CMS, I mean, certainly I blame CMS for a bunch of things, but my business is still thriving, right? Like we're still growing, we're still doing terrific. So I'm not letting it defeat me. Regardless of who's running CMS, put your head down, go to work, handle your shit, and the rest will work out. But I'm optimistic for Oz.
Same.
on the non-commissionable plans, I think, pay attention to what's going on. But I do believe more than anything else, after having a couple of months removed from this all going down and being able to reflect, I completely agree with what Glenn said about, I think it is a correction and it's the pendulum swinging one way. I think there's a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential for our business. Our business is going to change over the years for sure. And I think if you're ready to adapt and change and evolve and, be in it for the long haul, you have a great opportunity long term in our space.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Again, Dr. Oz, my final thoughts, you guys. I think at a minimum, it's not gonna get worse. I think we'll at least hold the line. That's my personal opinion. I think we'll at least hold the line with where things are at CMS. If not, if anything, I think it'll get better, right? Worst case scenario here is I think we hold the line and we don't see a ton of change. Best case scenarios, we do see the car go in reverse. We're seeing some deregulation. The non-commissionable plans, I think this correction could ultimately end up being a good thing. I know a lot of people initially took this as the sky's falling, that the industry's ending, but I think that is just, the Chicken Little agents getting a microphone and grabbing the headline and, saying, look at me, look, it's all ending, I'm right. I don't see the industry dying or disappearing anytime soon. So you don't need to worry about that. Those are my final thoughts today, you guys.
Marshall asked a great question on the live stream that I wanted to quickly address. So he asked, more comments equals more chances to win, ?
We'll discuss, but I think I want it to be fair. Yeah, that is a good question. And I was also wondering, like, if someone commented multi-day, if anything, I was thinking maybe if someone comments once every day, they could enter like 4 times in a given week. But I don't want to incentivize someone spamming the comments the same day. But maybe, and we'll talk about this. We'll have an update for you guys on tomorrow's stream. But maybe if you comment every day in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that would give you 4 chances in the giveaway on Friday. So, because again, we want you guys here with us every day because we're here every day. So we want you a part of the fun.
Yep. 100%. Thank you guys for getting all the way to the end and watching all the way to the end. Whether this be live or whether this be on the replay or anything like that, we appreciate you guys. As always, if you listen to us on a platform that allows you to do so, subscribe and leave a 5-star review, such as Apple Podcasts. That's a great one for us. We would definitely appreciate any reviews that you guys can provide. And we will see you guys on the next episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. And here's to your guys' success in the new year. Can't wait to be with you guys for the next one. And stay beautiful, everyone.
Happy selling.